It's that time of year. Time to bring him in. Comes on twice a year after each Survivor finale. You saw him first on Survivor Tocantins, and then you saw him on Survivor Second Chance. He's also the author of a novel, Escape, which you can pre-order on StephenFishbach.com. It goes on sale January 27th of 2026. Here he is, our resident expert guru in the world of Survivor, Stephen Fishbach.
As always, I am so delighted to be here. It's like my favorite biannual tradition to chat Survivor with you. It's always fun, especially after a season where I feel like I've been so like deeply immersed in the Survivor sphere to like get your takes, because I feel like you are like as I say every season, you are a passionate, attentive viewer who comes at things from a perspective that I often haven't considered.
So I want to start out with, I think pretty much what I start out with every time I have you on. Are you satisfied with who won? And if you were on the jury, would you have voted for Savannah?
Yeah, I think this is a great winner. I really think she was a great winner. She had such an incredible arc all season. She really was the glue on her tribe, on the Heenan tribe at the start of the game. She was that person kind of pulling people in, who brought Rizzo in, who brought Nate in. It seemed in those early days, everyone kind of really was competing for her attention and affection. You saw, part of the reason for the rivalry between Sage and Savannah was, I think Sage felt outcast by Savannah. She wanted to be in that core group of Savannahs. Then at the merge, when things kind of went south and Savannah found herself in the minority group, she really fought her way back. Maybe Rizzo led some of the strategy there, but she was a really big part of that. She brought over key allies. She was the one who brought in Sophie. And she was, I think, a big part of the reason that the other Sophie got brought into it at key points. And then she won these crucial immunities. And, I do think some people discount immunities, but it's part of the game. And I think especially when you are the target and are going to be eliminated, except you get these immunities at this crucial time, that's like using the mechanics of the game strategically. And yeah, especially, you're looking at the two people next to her. Sophie, I feel like, had an amazing pre-merge, but didn't really do so much after the merge, and especially squandering that kind of crucial moment she had with the knowledge of power, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And then Sage, who again, had huge driver of strategy. Honestly, not to go on too long here, but the Sage Savannah thing is interesting because Sage was a really big part of the strategy. But as Stephen said in his questioning, you were a part of this huge alliance, and that whole alliance got decimated, and I think people are angrier at their ally who voted them out than at their enemy who votes them out. And I think that's one of the key things that Savannah did well.
I wanted to talk about Savannah's immunities because pre-merge, Savannah didn't stick out to me in terms of watching the show. Now, all season long, I was very well aware that Rizzo and Savannah were the two people from this season that were going to be on 50, which I did not know any spoilers for this season. I don't even know if it was out there. I don't even know if there's a person out there that releases the winner of Survivor. I don't know if Survivor Sucks is even a thing anymore, or Martin Holmes puts it out there. I don't know. But I did know that Rizzo and Savannah all season long were the two from this season, which inherently is a mini spoiler in itself because well, they're not getting eliminated pre-merge and then being asked to come on 50. They clearly make some sort of statement on season 50. And then I think it was at the merge where Jeff talked to them and said, hey, we're not done casting 50. You still could have a chance to get on. And then I was like, and right at that point, remember, they were 7-3 on the bottom of an alliance. And I'm like, well, I know they're not going home 9th and 10th. There's no way, because they haven't made any sort of statement on this game. So that was the only mini spoiler I had. But with her immunities, pre-merge, I don't remember Savannah sticking out in terms of immunity challenges when she had to go to them with a team. Did I miss something? Was she, not that she was terrible, but did anything stick out pre-merge of her competing in immunity challenges?
No. Those pre-merge challenges are much more physical. They're more group, you're all running, you're diving, you're jumping. She excelled at those standing very still challenges, right? She did very well when it was an endurance challenge, when you had to hold your leg up in a certain way, when you had to support your body weight. She was really good at that kind of challenge. And those are the challenges post-merge. I totally agree with you about you knew that like there was a bunch of key votes around 10 and 9 and 8 where it really looked like it could have been Savannah specifically going home, and sometimes Rizzo. The MC vote, Rizzo was really in the hot seat for that one. And you knew that they weren't going to go, because that, like you said, they're not getting cast on season 50 and going at 9th. And I do think the season as a whole kind of suffered from that, because for those of us who knew who was cast, we realized, like, you kind of knew where these votes that must have been surprising in real time. I'm sure production watching it was like, whoa, how did these two skate through again? But like, what, as someone who knows that they do really well, there was a mini spoiler about Savannah, which was that of Rizzo and Savannah was on the tribes were released or were spoiled, I guess, for season 50.
That's right.
And there's a winner on one tribe who is D, a winner on another tribe who I'm totally forgetting. The other winner on 50.
Kyle, right?
Yes, Kyle. And then Savannah was on the third tribe, so there was some speculation because of that. Maybe they chose one winner for each of those three tribes. So, and then as her kind of edit sort of bore that out, I think people were just sort of like kind of defaulted to that.
What's interesting is, did you happen to look at Savannah's social media, her Instagram, or pretty much all season, but it was always the last couple of weeks that I noticed something on there?
Not, I mean, I sometimes her tweets would enter my feed, but not really otherwise.
Okay. So on her Instagram, she basically talked about her workout plan for 2 or 3 months leading into the season. And I'm not saying some people have different strategies, some people don't, but she had a full-on regimented for 2 to 3 months before she left to go film 49 of what she was going to do. And then when you watch it play out, it's like, yeah, she was going to destroy anybody physically, because she doesn't come across as just think of any beefcake that's ever been on this show. She's a small dynamite package. And yet in that challenge where she's sitting there with her legs up, it looked like she could have sat there for 5 hours. But on her Instagram, I wrote it down, I talked about it on my podcast today, I'm just going off memory, she was doing 60 to 90 minutes of cardio, and making sure that she wasn't taking water breaks, because she's like, well, I'm not going to have a water break in the middle of a challenge, so I got to prepare myself. She was doing hot sauna, hot yoga with no water, either during or after. And I'm like, okay. And now it kind of explains, like, her social game was called into question last night, but she's just like, look, in the one interview I read today on her post-win interview, she's just like, look, I wasn't looking for a unanimous vote to win. All I knew was I just needed enough to win.
Yes.
So if I discarded a couple people, that was fine with me. I just wanted to get to 4 or 5. That's all I cared about. And you can kind of see it in her mentality. And I can't fault her for that. She was an excellent winner, I thought. She
did all that and didn't practice making fire. That's nuts. That's so crazy. That could have been it for her.
Well, that was just something else I was going to bring up to you. I'll bring it up now. Not only her, Rizzo didn't know anything about fire. Like, I don't understand, Stephen. Everybody knows now. It's been 14, 15 seasons now in a row. We're at Final Four. There is a fire making challenge. Even if you never practiced fire before you got out there, you can practice fire as long as your tribe has flint.
Well,
during the day, you can go practice making a fire, right?
Well, they have to make fire every so often. Like, once you have it, you do keep it going. But I think, I don't know what the rules are, for Fiji, but sometimes they want you to put it out before challenges. Sometimes it just goes out, right? You're not going to like build a roaring bonfire before you leave for 4 hours for a challenge. So someone is making fire, someone is keeping the fire going, and you continually have to redo that. Put yourself in that, like, be that person who does that. And sometimes it becomes like a slightly political issue, and maybe you don't want to be like, hey, I'm going to do it, because then you look like aggressive, like you're prepping for fire. But to not do it at all before you go out. And Rizzo, super fan Rizzo, super fan Sophie, super fan Savannah, who, I've been aspiring to do this for 15 years of my life. Like, and you didn't make fire once? Like, how is that possible?
Yeah, they all acted last night when Sophie wins the final immunity challenge. They're all sitting there acting like, oh, wow, gosh, and now I might have to make fire, and I'm not
Right.
really good at it. I'm like, I don't understand this,
Yeah.
especially like you said, for super fans. Here's something that I had about the final immunity challenge. And as a fan of the show who never wants to ever go on it, there's no interest in going on it. I'm not shading anybody because anything they do out there, any challenge seems difficult. However, I thought last night's final immunity challenge just seemed like a regular challenge that they would do during the season. Nothing endurance wise. They didn't have the ball in the cage. One of my favorites. You know that one. What's it called again?
Samotion.
They didn't do Samotion. And there's a part of me now watching it was like, you saw those four people, Sage, Rizzo, Sophie, and Savannah. Maybe, and I guess we'll never know the answer to this, maybe the Survivor producers said, look, if we do anything endurance-wise or strength-wise, it's not even going to be close. Savannah will destroy them. And maybe that's why they decided to make it more puzzly, because the only thing physical was crawling under that, swiping away sand and crawling under that log. After that, it was the ball with the two sticks, and then here's, the ball through a maze, which we've seen in numerous challenges pre-final challenge immunity. I just thought that was a rather pedestrian final immunity challenge. Did you look at it that way by any chance?
I actually was I hear you. You didn't feel like this is the last one. It felt like just another one. That's a really good point. I kind of liked it because it was different. I don't need to see Samotion every single season. I wouldn't mind some crazy. Listen, I'm like, let's put the hand on the log and see who lasts the longest. Like, that would be really cool to see. I always wanted to participate in that. But I'm sure the producers are like, we need to move this along. I'm tired. I want to get home. Craft Services has got a big dessert plan for us tonight. So I'm sure that's part of why they don't do those sort of 13-hour challenges anymore. But I do think the show suffers for that. I agree with you. One thing that, by the way, speaking of people not preparing for things, of the people who did that Final Four challenge, 3 of them went under, the digging through the sand and going under the log thing the wrong way. And like 2025, you go on your back because your body bends this way, right? Your body bends around your stomach, your body bends forward. You don't go on your stomach because it's harder to get through. You can't bend that way. Yeah. So Sage was the only person who did it correctly. It didn't really matter for Savannah because she just kind of breezed right through it. But for Rizzo and Sophie, they struggled with that. And I was like, you guys, how are you doing this like this? Anyway, small thing, but I noticed it.
And here's my beef with the penultimate immunity challenge. They give Sophie an advantage that she finds in the woods because the bag was up in the tree. She found it. Great. Usually when you get an advantage going into a challenge, it's usually, especially on a relay race type of thing or an obstacle course, you get to skip a completely one part of the race. To give Sophie, hey, half your ladder is already made. I'm like, that's an advantage? Yeah. Especially when at the top of that ladder, we all know it's a giant puzzle, and that no matter where you are in the race, it's going to come down to either you're good at putting that puzzle together or you're not. That whole ladder could have been made for Sophie, and we saw the way Savannah just boat raced everybody in that puzzle. She was going to kill them regardless. I just thought that was a very weak advantage for a very important immunity challenge.
Totally agree.
Half your ladder? Come on.
If you're going to have the advantage, have it be meaningful. No, it's such a balance because you don't want it to be overpowered. And I do feel like that was sort of the problem early on when they had this twist, was that the advantage, I remember Erica just smoking Ricard in season 41 because of the advantage that she found in that challenge. And you kind of don't want that either, right? You want the immunity challenge to be meaningful, but this was really nothing. It was half of, like you're saying, half of a stage of a multi-stage challenge. You want at least one full, even just that ladder. Who cared? That ladder wasn't some overwhelming obstacle. It was a few seconds or even a minute or two of time. But to do half the ladder, she won this thing. They made it a part of the game. It has to be meaningful. It can't just be 10 seconds off your clock.
Yeah, and it ended up being nothing. And like I said, even if they would have given her the full ladder, it wouldn't have mattered. Savannah was winning that challenge regardless, because when you watched when she finished that puzzle, nobody was even, I don't even think they had the outer, I don't think they even had the whole outer rim.
No, and at some point they all just gave up. They were like, what am I doing here? Let's just watch. I'm a viewer.
It's crazy. I want to get to the final tribal. and we'll get to Christina, what she did in a second, because I really found that interesting. But Jeff didn't talk about it. Maybe they will talk about it on the post-show interviews today. I've only read Savannah's so far. But if Rizzo beats Savannah at fire making, Sophie wins this, doesn't she?
I think so. I do think so. I think Rizzo, from what we saw, played a phenomenal game. But it sounds like the jury didn't have the same affection. I read, some of Stephen's interview.
That's when I caught it. When I saw Stephen's answers last week, I was like, oh, they don't think Rizzo's a threat at all. They don't respect his game. Yeah.
Right. And we saw that with Xander again in season, not to bring everything back to season 41, which was really a long time ago. But every week to week, Xander held his idol, and he used it very differently than Rizzo did, right? Rizzo was very aggressive about it. And it was much more meaningful for Rizzo than for Xander. But the fandom was like, well, Xander's it's going to be this huge threat to win, and he had this idol that he held the whole time, and and then he got 0 votes. And part of it was because he was, I think, looked at as this young guy, and nobody cared about flushing the idol because they weren't worried about him. So you can do your idol shenanigans, but it's not really relevant to us because we haven't decided in our group consensus that you're a winner threat. So I think that was probably part of it. I do think some of the theatrics probably alienated people, whatever, like maybe he was playing for 50, in which case it worked. He's on 50, way to go. Jeff said, like, make a show, and he made a big show, and it paid off. But if he had lost because of that, maybe he would feel differently. But I think in terms of like how it worked out for him, where he didn't win fire anyway, and then he ended up losing the vote. I think, making it to 50. I think, but like, I do think that Sophie would win there. I think she had a great final tribal council where she talked a lot about her social game and how she was able to like bring in the information because people trusted her. And Rizzo was a big talker, but he reads, I've talked about this with Rob Cesternino on our podcast. Like, he reads very young, he's 27. He's not that, like, my first time out there, I was 28. But he reads like 23 kind of,
Yeah. Now that you said that, I did not know he was 27. I thought he was younger. I thought he was 22 or 23.
Yeah.
So you look at it, Savannah.
No, I'm sorry. Rizzo's 25. I'm sorry.
25?
He's 25. Okay. So that's a big difference, but even so. Yeah.
So I'm looking at Savannah's votes: Rizzo, Stephen, Sophie, Alex, and Nate. So she's not there. I think Rizzo goes for Sophie. So that's 3 votes that she has because she's already got Christina and MC.
Right.
I don't think Christina and MC change their vote if it's Rizzo. I don't think they vote for Rizzo. I think they're still sticking with Sophie. So I think Sophie gets Rizzo's vote. So now she's got Christina, MC, and Rizzo.
Wait, sorry. Wait, Savannah's vote or
Savannah's vote?
Rizzo's
I'm
there.
saying it's Rizzo's there and Savannah's not.
You think I would bet Savannah votes for Rizzo because they were together from the very beginning.
Okay. I'm looking. Yeah, I just totally screwed that up because I said Rizzo would give Sophie his vote, but I'm like, wait, he's there in the final 3. Rizzo would get 1 vote from Savannah.
Yeah.
Stephen and the other Sophie, I think they go for Sophie. I just don't think everybody's all of a sudden going to see some game with Sage. Right. And like I said, based on Stephen's answers, certainly Stephen clearly wasn't voting for Rizzo. So Sophie certainly gets Stephen's vote. So that's 3 for her, and she only really needs 1 more.
I think that's although, Sophie S might not want to vote for the other Sophie, just to be like the fully loser Sophie. Like there might be a little bit of like, do I want to like really like get the other Sophie? Because even her final confessional was like, oh, now I'm like the Sophie that sucks. And Nate might vote for Rizzo, right? Because they were together from the beginning. Hard to say with someone like Nate. I don't think he's just going to vote purely based on loyalty. But it might be a little bit of between her. We're saying MC, Stephen,
Christina. That's 3 for Stephen. And then where does Alex go? I mean, that's
right. Alex is probably going for Sophie there, right? Because he voted for Savannah here, but he's probably going for Sophie.
So that's 4. And as long as Juan sticks with Sage, then 4-3-1 is she would win. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see if somebody gets asked that. If the fire making challenge was flipped and Savannah didn't win and Rizzo did win, who wins? And I definitely think it would be Sophie, which is amazing because if you would have asked me in the first 3 or 4 episodes of this season, is this little girl with the voice of a toddler which I found endearing as the season
So
went on.
endearing. She was so charming. Yeah.
In the beginning, I was like, I don't know if I can take this. And the more I heard her, she was just a joy to watch on the show this season.
Even when she was like the challenge, oh, I'm just so at this. It was great. I really had a kick out of watching her, and she was always having like, even as she was suffering and sucking, she seemed to be like having fun and like making light of it. So it was really, those are the most, I wanted to be that person when I was out there, but I was like trying to smile, but I was so miserable. It looked miserable, but she seemed to really be enjoying herself. And I really love that.
Oh yeah. Her commentary during her challenges when she was failing miserably it's just more funny. It was almost heartbreaking to watch, but also kind of funny when it's playing out. And I haven't,
like she could come back too.
Oh, for sure. I absolutely think, and she said she would. I'm looking at this, and obviously Dalton hasn't put his post-show interviews out yet. And every year when Dalton does it, he also re-ranks every season. I don't know where this is going to be, but my impression is he will rank season 49 probably in the bottom 10 or 15, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I think for sure bottom 15. I mean, like I think bottom 10 is likely too.
Yeah, I was trying to pinpoint, because as I'm watching it and I was covering it in the beginning, I'm just like, I don't know why I'm not enjoying this season. I don't know. Maybe it was just boring. Maybe there weren't enough blind sides pre-merge, but the first 4 or 5 episodes to me just weren't as good. And maybe this season was behind the 8 ball all season long because everybody knew 50 was coming and everybody wants to see their favorite players play. And maybe this season never had a chance. I think it did pick up post-merge, but maybe it was just pre-merge. It just didn't seem to be interesting. I don't know.
I agree. And I do think some of that is just format fatigue, where they're doing, I guess this time they did briefly do, they did 2 tribes instead of 3 tribes at one point. But it did really feel like it's the same people that they're kind of casting. They're doing the same things. The tribe formats are the same. I feel I'm like so hopeful for 51 that they shake it up, and like, let's go back to some, they used to do this crazy stunt casting. I was just talking about this with someone, Taj on my first season was cast specifically because they were looking for an NFL player's wife, like what a unique, weird thing to go out looking for. And she also happened to be a huge pop star or R&B star, but like, so that helped. But like just that type of casting where you're kind of looking for like more quirky, interesting, weird, people. And I love this cast. There's a lot of people, I think Savannah was a very fun casting choice. Rizzo was a lot of fun. I love Jawan. I mean, Sage was great because Sage was a total oddball, but I just kind of feel like they need to like broaden the types of people they're bringing in. It just feels a little bit like it's all a bunch of game bots who are all super fans of the show and they're all playing the same way. And, I really like that about Rizzo, though. He was like, I'm going to push the game forward. I want to make this, what he was saying about the idol. Like, I want to change the way the idol's used. I want to like do something different. Like, that's exciting. But other than that, I kind of feel like the game has entered this stale phase and you kind of need like idiots, everyone's too smart. You need more idiots, or people who don't know the game as well, I should say.
Well, what about something that's been brought up for years is what about a celebrity version? Not A-list celebrity, not even B-list, but you take a cast like outside of the people that are from Survivor that are on the Traitors, you do a Traitors-like cast, bring somebody in from the Housewives franchise, bring somebody in from Big Brother, which they did. I think there's been somebody from Big Brother on the show, but a season where it's just all that. Derek Huff has come out recently and said he's absolutely a Survivor super fan now, and he would love to do the show. Like, what? I don't, unless they just can't get it approved with publicists and these people really are saying they love the show, but would they really be out interested in roughing it for 26 days? I don't know. But that would absolutely inject some life, at least for one season, to be like, wow, I want to see these somewhat superstars, celebrities rough it out there for 3.5 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, listen, even John Lovett like brought in a lot of viewers. People were really excited to watch him play the game. And, obviously Mike White has brought a lot of attention to the franchise. I think you're right. Like as much, there's something very exciting about 18 people from, normal people from all walks of life going in, but like, why not do something a little different? And I do think you're right that a lot of these people are happy to say, oh, I'd love to play Survivor, but do you actually want to lose, 20 pounds? Do you actually want to like be, everything that goes with that, the malnutrition, the discomfort that these people haven't experienced in, at all in the last 20 years of their lives or whatever, just from like being, in their like cozy little bubbles of celebrity. I think it would be hard. I mean, like to find those people, but obviously they exist. You've got Mike White, right? Like could the most comfortable life in the world, but like a lot of people, celebrities or not, want that. And I do think like they'll bring two things. One is like a little bit of performance, and I think the Traders does it very well. Like obviously they're it's a little more camp than Survivor. I don't think you wouldn't want all that kind of like scenery chewing on Survivor, but I think like just that sort of like crazy confidence that celebrities have, this would lead to some big TV moments. I don't know, but also just like in general, the format needs to like something needs to change, like different challenge, like different structure. Like it's the fact that it's this 3 tribes every single time. It creates this really stale dynamic at the beginning because the strategy is already like decided. What you need to do at 6. There's no wiggle room. You get your 3 or 4, and then boom, like that. Then it's done. You've got your little onion. That tribe strategy is decided. Like if it's 10 people, it's such a different game. You can't control 10 people. There's going to be factions. There's going to be sub factions. Suddenly, like the pre-merge becomes much more electric because there's just a lot more variables.
So you think they should go back to 2 tribes pre-merge?
Yeah, like mix it up. And when it was 2 tribes every season, that was boring too. And then when they first did 3 tribes in Philippines, that was so exciting. Because like, oh my, I'm so tired of like the stale. Like you get your 5, and then so the first group you get the 5 wins. Now that was a different era of the show though, and I think now that would not happen as much. It used to be like that. You'd have 2 tribes, one group on each tribe would kind of like be like the strategic ones. They'd have like their 5 together and they would dominate, but I don't think that would happen anymore.
So you talk about changing up format and, just kind of mixing things up. We'll get it with 50. We're going to see a bunch of our favorites play, 12 preseason 40, well, preseason 30. Since nobody from season 30 to 40 got taken for season 50. So 12 people preseason 30, 12 people post season 40.
There were some people in the mix in the 30s. You got like Devins.
Which one? There was a 10-year run, right?
It was not fully 10 years. There was a couple of years, but it was it fully? I mean, because like you've got Rick Devins.
I thought it was nobody between 30 and 40 that's on 50.
Rick Devins was on 38. Christian Hubicki was on 37. Chrissy Hoffbeck was on 34, 35.
Then it's 10 to 20.
It's some big chunk. I think it might be 10 to 20 actually. Well, Coach was on season 18
or 20. No, it's 20 to 30 that didn't get cast. I'm almost positive.
Yeah.
I know
okay. That I think is correct. Yes.
Well, we're gonna pull up the.
No, that's right. Yeah, that is correct. 20. There's nobody from 20 to 30. I mean, there's people who obviously played in that, like Coach did, but he was originally season 18.
Okay, so. Real quickly, what did we do? 20 to 30. So heroes versus villains, Nicaragua, Redemption Island, South Pacific, One World, Philippines, Caramoan, Blood versus Water, Cagayan, San Juan del Sur. Those are the 9 seasons.
I mean, heroes, villains, you can't really count because you did have the villain, but like
But nobody. I mean, just looking at some of the winners, Cochran, Tyson, Kim Spradlin, Tony, Natalie. No.
Yeah. I mean, nobody from 28 is wild. Like 28 was such a rich season, bringing back Bryce. My gosh, where's Bryce? But truly, like there was so many great contestants from that. You think they would like at least cast one just to make it the full franchise?
So here's something that came up that I just saw on a Twitter clip a couple days ago, and it goes to what you were saying in regards to something to do to inject some life into the franchise and what they could possibly do for 50. Did you hear what Ethan Zahn had to say?
Oh no, tell me.
So Ethan said, and I don't even know, I didn't really even fully flesh this out in my head and think, is this a good idea or not? So I'm going to present it to you. He basically said, number one, we need more video of jury stuff. The Ponderosa videos are pretty much gone now.
Yeah.
We don't see as an audience anything that happens once these people leave until they come back and sit there. And it's not like we get to see them talk or strategize or anything. He said, I think we need something, either bring back the Ponderosa videos for the fans so we can see people arriving, what they're talking about. But then strategy wise, he said, again, I haven't fully fleshed this out, but he said, Final Tribal Council either they should come to a majority, like a jury in a jury trial, or you draw rocks. And he got questioned about that, and I don't remember what the answer was.
That feels like Ethan was cooking, but I don't know what he was cooking with. Like, I don't know what, like, yeah.
But how about, let's say, so just thinking about this, maybe the first part of that the majority, that the jury has to come to a majority like a jury does, and we get to see them contemplating this or fleshing it out. But no, if they don't come to a majority, hey, you just pull rocks and that's your winner. No, we don't want that to happen, because then there'll be so many winners. People are like, this is ridiculous. You won because you pulled the right color. But I don't know. Discussing, I definitely think there's got to be something more with the jury. I just feel like those Ponderosa videos were really interesting, and we got to just see more behind the scenes stuff. It seems like they've eliminated that, even though, Probst has his own podcast now and he gives us behind the scenes stuff. And maybe that's what they're considering the replacement for Ponderosa videos, is Probst talks about the episode after every episode. I don't know. Yeah. But I think they should do something with the jury. I just feel like once these people are eliminated, it's like, see ya, persona non grata, you're done. We don't care about you anymore,
I hear that. I mean, I love the Ponderosa videos too. I mean, it was fun to be a part of. It was also fun to, it was fun to watch, see them kind of like processing it. But that's more about those people. I never felt like I was getting like insight into what they were doing to deliberate. And I love that, because it was sort of a more unfiltered look into people like basically processing trauma, right? Like they'd just gone through something crazy. They'd like put their all on the line to win this game, and then they'd lost. And like they're just trying to work through that, like their anger, their frustration, creating new bonds within the jury house as they healed wounds with people who had been against them. So I really enjoyed those too. I don't know if that would fundamentally change the format, but it would be great. Like, why not? Let's do it. I'm voting for that change.
I'm not saying dedicate 50% of the episode to hearing what these people are discussing. Yeah. I'm not even saying 25, but I would like to see the person, just like in the Ponderosa videos, but use that as part of the episode. Even if
that's interesting. That's really interesting
to see Christina getting back to camp and saying, this is what happened. And then maybe 2 or 3 minutes of them. That's a really discussing.
Cool idea. Because like, I do think like that is, it's a very political situation, right? The jury vote, where they are hashing out who won or who didn't win or who should win. I mean, the only downside to that is that it like puts the stress of the game like back on those people again, when you kind of want to give them some grace. But in terms of the content, I actually think you're really right. That could be that could be electric, because you are both tracking this very human moment. Probably the most intense emotional human thing that happens, is that elimination, and then like kind of coming to terms with having lost. But then it does become this huge vote. Like it is political. Like they're endlessly debating who should win. And I think you're right. Like that actually could be really cool content, almost cooler. Like, that scene at the start of the episode where like the contestants go back and they're like, oh, you got me. Oh, I'm so mad at you. It might be more interesting to like actually get the eliminated person's perspective there. And you do get it because it's part of the game. That's a really cool idea. I really like that actually. And from having like gone to being slightly dismissive of it, you've really sold me on it.
Yeah. And like I said, just use it in the first, get it out of the way early. The first 2, 3, 4 minutes of the episode is the eliminated person from the previous episode arriving at Ponderosa, telling about what happened and how they were eliminated.
And you get their perspective. Yes, exactly. And like, where did it go wrong? What did they think was going to happen? Then you're suddenly getting so much more context, and you're seeing like who they're mad at. Like, and that creates all this pressure for us as the audience, because we're like, oh, she's mad at Stephen. Like, what's Stephen going to do about it? And that's cool. That's a really cool idea. I wish, especially because like the episodes have seemed to kind of drag a little bit. When we first got 90 minutes, I was so excited because I thought we got so much more context and so much more beach life. This season, and I'm sure that won't be the case next season when there's 24 contestants. But this season it did feel like it dragged a little bit.
I didn't even get to. I said I was going to talk about it. We got to go back to the final tribal. And that was Christina's, it wasn't even a question to Savannah. And I thought it was so interesting. And I almost feel like it's not going to happen on 50, because obviously 50 filmed and they couldn't see what Christina said at Final Tribal to Savannah. But I almost feel like this could be a mainstay going forward. But now that everybody who has seen it is now going to pay more attention. In Savannah's post-show interview that I did read today, she specifically said, because she was asked about being labeled as the villain, being labeled as the bitch this season. People just think the way she comes across seems to be a little, I don't know, bitchy, uppity, like I'm almost better than you. And she said, reading it back, she goes, well, obviously at the time when she went and filmed this, she only had 2 weeks before. She went home for 2 weeks, flew back out for 50.
That's crazy.
But she said she made it a known to her. I guess she figured this out maybe at Final Tribal and getting the questions, and even at the reunion show. She just said, I was a little more self-aware of how I came across to people heading into 50, and I made it a point to try and be better at that. So it'll be interesting to see how she comes across at 50. But what Christina said, honestly, was one of the best things I've ever heard at Final Tribal, even though it ended up having no bearing whatsoever, because Savannah still got 5 votes. She didn't get Christina. She probably wasn't getting Christina's anyway. And it was almost like a shot from Christina to maybe throw it out there like, hey, guys, look, no matter what she has done, she hasn't really gotten to know any of you.
Right.
But to Savannah's credit, in her post-show interview, she did say, like, look, I'm just never good with names, period. I could have been on a full stomach, and I just haven't been good at names. So it's whatever you want to believe when it comes to that. I just thought the idea in terms of a social game, I think is very interesting to be like, hey, could you at least name one person and their name of somebody in everyone on the jury's lives?
Yeah.
And the fact that she can only go 3 for 8, I almost thought, oh my gosh, we've never heard this before at a Final Tribal ever.
Yeah.
First time in 49 seasons, I thought it was great. And then I was like, holy shit, is this going to torpedo her game? Ultimately ended up not. She won 5-2-1. It wasn't even really that close, but I still think this is something now that everybody who has seen it and whoever's going to be cast on 51 and 52, I think this is going to be a thing going forward now.
Yeah, it was very cool. I mean, it was like it felt like such a raw moment, especially when she totally flipped. We didn't even see her mentioning anybody from Rizzo. I assume she knew someone from Rizzo's life. Maybe they were cut it because it didn't make the editor make the point as well. But honestly, it was something I loved about Savannah was she had a little bit of villainous energy. I don't want to say she was villainous, but it wasn't just her facial expressions. It was also the fact that there were literally confessionals where she was enjoying the fact that her enemies weren't eating. It wasn't just like, oh, we had a best meal. It was like, they didn't. Those losers didn't get to eat. She really had a little bit of that kind of villain vibe. And honestly, it was sort of fun to watch. I mean, it was the villain discourse around Survivor is so fraught because everyone says, oh, we want more villains, but not too mean. But I felt like Savannah was that person, she had that edge to her, but wasn't too vicious. She wasn't hateful or doing actually cruel things. She just kind of was sassy.
She was just, and a lot of it seemed to come across in her confessionals. I don't remember her really being that way. Maybe she was a couple times in front of people, but it seemed like it came across way more in her confessionals where she was just very confident. She seems to be very confident in herself. And I think it's because of what I told you earlier. She came in prepared. No, she could probably see around her that nobody physically had put in 2 to 3 months of 6 days a week of high intensity interval training workouts, hot yoga classes, Pilates, not drinking water. The way she trained for this, I think she knew it in her head. Physically, I'm better than all these people. And she just outwardly expressed that in her confession.
Sometimes at tribal council, she would be a little bit performative with her, like the Jawan boot. She was making a lot of faces and expressions. It was just
even though she knew.
Yeah. But then when the vote flipped, she was like, oh, it was like, I got you. It was a little bit a little bit pugilistic.
So you're the Survivor historian. You'll know this off the top of your head. I can only think of one. Obviously, we know Survivor 50 was filmed 2 weeks after 49 ended, and we know that Rizzo and Savannah are the two. Russell Hantz is the only one that I can remember who filmed another season with a whole group of people that had no idea what he had done on the season before because it hadn't aired.
Yeah, I don't.
Was there another one that it's happened or no?
I don't think they saw Malcolm before Malcolm was on. I'm pretty sure that on 26. So Malcolm went from Philippines in 25 to 26, which was fans.
So it's just those two, Malcolm and Russell.
Yeah, I mean, there have been people who've done back to back, but I think their seasons aired first. Amanda and James went from Survivor 15 China straight into Micronesia, fans versus favorites. And I think there's others. I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, for sure, there's others that have done sequential seasons. Like Shireen went from season 30 to season 31. We had watched season 30 already. So in terms of people who have their season had not aired yet, I'm pretty sure it was Russell. Oh, I think only a little bit of Rupert's season had aired before he did All Stars. I think they had maybe seen a little bit of Rupert, but not his full arc.
Is that when they did not film them so close to each other back to back? Like
I think that must have been just the timing was not as overlapping. But I do think nobody had seen Samoa obviously when they filmed Here's Villains, and I don't think people had seen Philippines when they did 26. But I'm trying to think if there's anybody else for whom that was the case, and I don't think so. Where they just hadn't seen that person before they came back. I don't think so.
It's an interesting dynamic because there's two ways to look at it. The other 22 people on 50 have no idea what Rizzo and Savannah did, other than I'm sure once they get to their tribes, they're going to find out that Savannah had won season 4. It's not like they're going to keep it secret. I don't think.
Right. Oh, no, of course. I'm sure she'll be like, yeah. Because, yeah.
But do you look at it as like, we don't know their game, we got to get them out now? That seems to be a strategy. But when the same thing happened on Heroes versus Villains, Russell made it to back-to-back finals, and they hadn't seen him play. So It's almost like, how did he make it? It's almost looking back on it now, it's almost funny. How did he make it to the finals when clearly he had done something very well on the season before? He probably told them, I made it to Final Tribal. So I'm really wondering, how is this going to go for Rizzo and Savannah? Do their tribes say, we got to get them out? What we don't know is too dangerous to us. Or let's keep them around because we don't know enough about them. I don't know. It's just, how would you, if you were on a tribe, you were on one of the tribes that Rizzo and Savannah go to on 50, what would your take be? Not even, and obviously you can't take into what we saw last night into account because you don't know, but
right.
Someone who just played, one of them was a winner, one of them finished 4th. What would be your take? Would you go after them immediately or no?
I think you go in with the mindset that you have to go after them immediately, but oh, it's the stranger. I don't know. They obviously did something, good enough to like justify being here, to justify someone else not getting on this cast who had previously been cast. So they must have been pretty deadly out there. But I think it's really hard to keep that in your head because everybody else you've seen, you have like the visual memory of having watched them do the thing. And you're like, that's the one I need to, so even if abstractly, that you need to get rid of the stranger, I think that when it's right in front of you, you're going to be more determined by the things you've seen and like, because it feels more concrete. It's more something for your like head to wrap, to wrap around. So in a lot of ways, it really is a huge advantage because while you might think like, oh, nobody knows me, I don't have any connection to these people, I didn't get to like participate in the post game, like, whatever, razzle dazzle. I think nobody being able to kind of like have an idea of you almost means that they're gonna like not be like focused on you when they're like thinking about their strategy. They're gonna be like, oh, I know what Suri's gonna do here. I know what Ozzy's gonna do here. I got to get Suri out. Suri's the giant killer. I got to get Suri. And nobody's going to be like, I got to get Rizzo out, like, even if you have this vague sense that maybe Rizzo did something good, you don't really know what it was. And it's hard to really, think about when you're like making these very, these small strategic decisions.
So they seemingly, based on that, wouldn't be early targets.
I think they will not be early targets. That's right. I think it's going to be the people, or like, if you're targeting someone, like if you're like, we got to get out these like chaos players, we got to get out Q, we got to get out. I mean, who else is a chaos player on this season? I don't know. You're not sorry.
No, I couldn't think of one off the top of my head.
You're like, you don't know if Rizzo's a chaos. You don't have that sense of him. So you're like, oh, we'll worry about this thing later. And then ultimately, like the game kind of becomes, that's just for the first few votes anyway, right? The game kind of like sort of becomes what's right in front of you ultimately.
Yeah. And I think maybe if Savannah does go early, maybe it's because she shows she's really good at comps. And they're like, oh, wait, she's a comp beast. Maybe right. Rizzo tells his camp she won 4 immunities. She tied the record with the women, and she almost won a 5th. She almost set the record for solo immunities for a woman in this franchise. So maybe he uses that, but it doesn't seem like Rizzo wants to throw her under the bus because they seem pretty close.
Right.
So it's almost like Rizzo would love to get to the merge and see Savannah there and vice versa. Because
I love the fact that there's like close allies. I think that's really fun. Like, 5 people from the last 2 seasons is probably overkill. And especially like with the rear view on season 48, but I'm excited that, that Kyle and Camilla are both there. I'm excited to see Joe again. I'm probably the one. I'm hyped to see Joe again.
People don't like Joe.
People, I think there's a certain subset of the fan base that felt like it was like too much about Joe in 48. But I thought Joe was such a phenomenal. I'm glad to hear that feels more universal to you.
Yeah, I think the guy's story is great. I mean, I didn't watch the 48 hours thing on him this past weekend where he went on 48 hours and talked about he years later thinks his sister was murdered. And, he's been told his whole life that his sister committed suicide. And he's like, I don't believe it.
God.
I didn't watch the segment, but, that's obviously got to be pretty traumatizing.
Yeah.
And I had no idea people were turned off on Joe. Guy's like American hero.
Maybe it's like the like digital, like the two online fan base is just like, I don't want.
If too many people like something, I have to hate it. Yeah.
Yeah. Or just like he was, a certain type of way, like that they didn't resonate for them.
Interesting. Yeah. All right. So Survivor season 50, we have a new game that we're allowed to play as viewers.
The Idol Hunt. Well, I'm in Washington, D.C., so I can't really play.
Yeah. So we find out last night that they're going to hide an idol in all 50 states. And they're going to start, you got to sign up, go to some link. You're going to get clues. And then whoever finds the idol is going to get some sort of prize. You're going to have 50 people with idols. I don't know, Stephen. I don't know if I really care to do this. If it's not in your city, who's going to I
have two kids. I can't. I'm not driving around Maryland looking for this thing.
Yeah, I don't understand. And then in the preview that we did get to see for 50, Zach Bryan's going to be on it. Mr. Beast, Jimmy Fallon's going to play a role. Billie Eilish is going to have some boomerang idol. What's going on here? This hasn't been well received so far that I've seen.
It was very funny. I was participating in some online chats yesterday during the finale, kind of like co-watching and chat BCC, and then in my Discord server. And the first half of the finale is so epic. You see the backpacks, you getting on the plane, you got this coach voiceover, you get to Colby's face. People were losing their shit. They were I'm so hyped. I can't believe it. I'm so excited. And then you've got Jimmy Fallon's going to determine my fate in this game. And you could feel the temperature drop with the fan base, what am I watching? And then it's I think the first one was Zach Brown's here, and Jimmy Fallon and Billie Eilish and Mr. Beast, and everyone's oh no, what's happening? It is like a horror movie. First everything sounds so great and idyllic, but then the monster is here, and the monster is Zach Brown. But I want to reserve judgment. I do think they are going to highlight those moments for a trailer like this. And they had stupid rewards back in the day, right? They had the Target reward, they had the Jack and Jill reward, and those were dumb things, and those are some of our favorite seasons ever. They created some hilarious moments that are a part of the culture. So the celebrity integration was not my favorite part of the trailer. However, I'm going to be cautiously optimistic about the whole season.
Is this how it's done on every season? I mean, outside of Survivor Second Chance, when you went on, because they literally flew you guys out the night of you guys were chosen, right? Every season everybody on the show goes on the same flight? I thought everybody arrives differently, and then you might run into somebody at the hotel or something like that. Is this the way it is every season, where everybody that's on that season flies out on the same flight and you just can't talk to each other?
I mean, you all meet, you take different ways to get to the hotel in wherever it is. I think we were in Miami, probably they're in LA now, right? Miami for Tocantins, but LA for the Pacific. I was in LA and then you are all on the same flight, and you're separated. You're not sitting next. I don't know if what they do now. I mean, when it was me. You were separated by a handler, so that nobody was talking or making pregame alliances. And boy, that's a miserable flight. It's the 14 hours. They definitely find the cheapest seats they possibly can. They look for specifically the worst seats so that you really run down. You don't know anybody. You can't talk. You're your little snacks. You can't even really go buy a meal because you're not allowed to leave for the group. Anyway, it's a miserable flight, but that's neither here nor there. But yes, what was I talking about? Yeah. They are all on the same flight.
And there are, but for 50, you clearly have pre-show alliances because these people knew they were being cast before getting on that plane. Yeah. So we're going to see, I don't know what they are. Stephanie and Suri, we talked about, I think on the last, when we knew that they were cast. They were on shows. They've done a show together. They were on Snake in the Grass.
Snake in the Grass. Right.
So clearly, and I don't I don't remember the 3 tribes of 8 off the top of my head. I don't think they're in the same tribe, right?
I have no idea.
You
yeah. But no, of course there's pregame alliances and relationships, and honestly, I just hope the show leans into that. Like that, then, because what I think is frustrating as a viewer is when there's these like deep relationships formed and you have no idea why, right? But like they're happening. The fan base all knows they're we all know they're happening, and like just talk about it. Like we all know these people have been on the show before multiple times. Like that's why you cast them. So I feel like to show a little bit of that, I do think kind of gives more context. And I'm hopeful that they'll do more of that. I think they even said the challenge is really good at that, right? The challenge will always be, these two had a Twitter beef and now they're rivals for life. But so I hope Survivor does more of that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see exactly who sticks together, and if it's even numbered in terms of 12 pre-40 and 12 post-40.
Yeah.
When you get to the merge, let's say the merge is 12. If it's not 6 pre-merge or 6 pre-40 and 6 post-40, do the post-40 all stick together? Do the pre-40 all stick together? It's gonna be really interesting. We don't know,
Right. I mean, we saw, in other seasons, in 40, like the old schoolers just got decimated. But what I think is interesting about the new era contestants is that they are all super fans. Yeah. And I think they're going to be excited to play with their idols. I think people are going to be so excited to play with Suri. So I think that like there's a world where, those kind of classic era contestants do well, partially because isn't Rizzo going to be so hyped to like make an alliance with Coach? Like who wouldn't be? So I think there's something there.
Yeah, that's I mean 50 is. I hope it lives up to the hype. Jeff Probst hyped the shit out of it last night, and his post, his interview for season 50 with Dalton. He had said like, if you've never watched an episode of Survivor, I would say tune in to the premiere. You're going to absolutely love it. If you've never watched 1 minute of the show, you will love it. And remember, that show in the premiere is going to be 3 hours.
God.
It looks like with 24 people, we got to have at least 2 or 3 episodes that are going to have double tribal counts.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting to see how quickly this moves. And then after the 3-hour premiere, I'm assuming it goes back to 1.5 episodes, 90-minute episodes. Yeah. All right. I want to end it with this. We talked about it in the last podcast. I want to bring it up again. Your book, Escape, is coming out on January 27th of next year, but you can pre-order it on StephenFishbach.com. Again, give people a little synopsis of what they can expect with your book. How long? Yeah. How long did you work on this?
I worked on it for about 10 years, but not constantly. I was doing other things too. So it wasn't like, but from start to finish, it really, I've been working on it, on and off for all that time, but I don't want you to think like it was like nonstop 10 years. That's almost like that sounds crazy. But for a really, really long time, I've been working on my novel. Here's a galley, which is, means like it's like the copy before the copy. It's called Escape. There's an exclamation point on it. So, it's exciting. And it is my attempt to kind of like capture everything I've sort of thought and felt about reality TV. I have, this has been reality TV contestant going back on the show, desperate to prove himself, as we're seeing on Survivor 50 very soon. I have these naive, younger contestants, kind of like a fans versus favorites, new contestants like stepping out into the wilderness, eager to discover what's out there for them. I have like manipulative producers, who are kind of like going through their own traumas. And there's sort of like this, like, there's like, it's kind of like an upstairs downstairs book where you have like the manipulation of the producers and that and their like politics is affecting the manipulation and the politics of the contestants. It's been getting a lot of really great praise. The site website Day Beautiful just said it's one of their most anticipated books of next year, called it the Great American Reality TV Book we've been waiting for. If you're into Survivor, if you're into reality TV generally, I think I've tried to pack this with like behind the scenes insights, some in-jokes and references. And pre-order would really help me out. You can pre-order it at StephenFishbach.com. And if you buy it from Barnes & Noble, you can get entered to win like all this Escape swag. Like there's like a cool hat, there's a shirt, there's a $100 gift card. So, go to BarnesandNoble.com and buy Escape now.
Yeah. Barnes & Noble, or like you said, StephenFishbach.com. It comes out on bookshelves on the 27th of
January.
Little over a month from now. But I will be. I'm interested in this. I'm really interested. I'm not even a book reader, but when it comes to anything reality TV related, that gets me more interested. I'm just.
And then you know what? Like even for non-readers, it's a great paperweight. You know, if you want to start a fire, you can rip it to shreds. The pages burn very well. I insisted on that. I want burnable pages. You know, it can make a hat. If you balance well, it could be a hat. So, I mean, there's a lot of uses for Escape. You know,
any future Survivor contestants that want to, I don't know, learn how to make fire before going on the show, you can use the pages as some of your what's it called? What's the
kindling or Tinder, depending on I mean, so actually though, in terms of future Survivor contestants, that's interesting. You know, I've had a few Survivor contestants read it, and like Rick Devens, who's going to be on 30 or I'm sorry 50 he was on 38, he's going to be on 50, said that, you know, he showed it to his wife to like show her what it was really like to be out there, you know. And I was like, wow, that is the ultimate praise. You know, if someone is sharing it with their spouse to say like, here's what it was like for me, like that's, I feel like I've done my job, like in terms of capturing, you know, what it's all about.
Can you tell us the name of the main character?
Yes, it's Kent Duvall is his name. Kent, I kind of like, it felt like it had like a little bit of like Clark Kent, you know, vibes. You know, he's sort of like a has-been former alpha male, you know, who's just like been replaying and rewatching his like first season out there over and over and over again. And now is in his mid 40s and is like just kind of depressed with like real life and like wants to like capture that greatness again.
Is the name of the show in the book Escape? Like
the name is Escape of the show in the book. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, like,
and it is a Survivor-like show, or is
I mean, it's a little more pared down than Survivor. It's like more kind of like brutal wilderness, less sort of like built up, you know, show. Partially because like that felt more interesting to like as a reader and for characters to be like, you know, like if you're like doing like the fire tokens and the obstacle courses, it's like, is that like fun to read about? Like it's cool to watch on TV, but I don't know if that's fun to read about, like, you know, an obstacle course. But anyway.
Interesting. Again, it's called Escape. You can get it on StephenFishbach.com or get it at Barnes & Noble. Stephen, thanks again so much. Love having you on at the end of every season. I can't wait to talk to you at the end of season 50 because I know that you are, you know, your acquaintances with a lot of these people, and you'll probably have a little more insight maybe you can add as well to once 50 is over and you've, you know, spoken to these people. But I can't wait, just because I do find it interesting. The dynamic of Rizzo and Savannah, I really am curious to see, are they targeted early, or are people just like you said, out of sight, out of mind? We don't know enough about them. Why go after them now? We'll take care of them later. I think that's a very interesting thing. And like I said, we saw it with Russell. And this guy obviously got to the island on Heroes versus Villains and probably told people, yeah, I got to the finals and lost. I came in second.
Right.
And they didn't seem to care. Like, yeah. They laughed it all the way to the finals again, back-to-back seasons, and lost in the finals again. You know? So, it'll be really interesting. Stephen, thanks again. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk soon, bud.
Thank you for having me on.
You got it.